All right, so welcome to this deep dive, you guys. We're going to be going through I Will Teach You to Be Rich by
Yes.
Ramit Sethi. And, obviously we're talking about money here.
Mm.
But I think what's really interesting about this book is that it's not just about, you know,
Like
yeah.
stacking your
Well,
Benjamins, right?
right, exactly. And I think that that is what initially drew me to the book because it really is about so much more than just the dollars and cents.
Yeah,
It really is about how to build a life that is rich, right? Like a rich life.
right.
And that encompasses your finances, but is not solely focused on that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I don't know, I've always kind of thought was interesting was this whole concept of like he calls it like the rich life, right?
Hmm.
But I think a lot of people maybe have this idea that like, oh, in order to live this rich life, you have to like
Right.
spend a ton of money or like,
A
have
certain amount of money or be
like
flashy.
whatever it is. Yeah, like live a certain lifestyle, but he's not really talking about that at all. No, not at all. It's really about aligning your spending with your values
Right.
and making sure that your money is working for you in a way that helps you live the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the best examples he gives in the book is the story of his friend Jim.
Yeah. Tell me about Jim. Yeah.
So, Jim gets a raise at work, and then what's the first thing he does? He downsizes his apartment.
It's so counterintuitive,
I know.
but it's like
It's brilliant, though.
it is brilliant, but it's like you think, okay, I got more money coming in now, so now I can like, go get a bigger place or whatever.
Yeah,
But
exactly. And the point is that it just wasn't a priority for him.
yeah,
Like his value was not in having a fancy apartment.
yeah,
He'd rather spend his money on like, camping and biking and going on adventures. And
experiences. Yeah,
yeah, so he was very intentional about saying, okay, if I can live in a smaller place, that frees up more money for me to do the things that I truly value.
yeah, yeah.
And so that's kind of the essence of this conscious spending idea, right?
Yeah. Like, where does this whole conscious spending thing come from? Because I think a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, oh, how do I actually do that?
Yeah, right. So he actually gives a framework for this.
Okay.
It's called the conscious spending plan.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically breaks down your spending into four main buckets.
Okay.
So you've got fixed costs, investments, savings goals, and then guilt-free spending money.
I love that there's guilt-free spending money in there.
Oh my God, that's the best part.
Because it's like, a lot of times when we think about budgeting, we're like, oh, well, I got to cut back on everything. And this
Sacrifice,
Yeah, I
sacrifice.
got to sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice.
Right.
But it's like, as human beings, we like to enjoy ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right.
We deserve to enjoy ourselves, and life is meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So that's where that guilt-free spending money comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's saying, you know what? You should have money set aside for the things that you enjoy
Mhm.
so that when you do spend on them, you don't have to feel guilty about
You
it.
don't have to like beat yourself up about it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny because like thinking about this whole concept of aligning your spending with your values, it's like if I love to travel, then maybe I don't need to buy, as many clothes, or maybe I don't need to go out to eat as much.
Right.
And then I can just take that money and put it towards the travel that I really want to do.
Precisely. That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
It's about saying, okay, what are the things that are important to me? And how can I make sure that my money is supporting those things?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sethi does a really great job of driving this point home when he talks about the 80-20 rule.
The 80-20 rule. Remind me what that is again.
Okay, so the 80-20 rule just in general is this idea that like roughly 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts,
Okay.
right? So like in business, 80% of your sales might come from 20% of your clients.
Mm-hmm.
And Sethi argues that the same principle applies to personal finance. So instead of sweating every little expense, stressing about whether you should buy the latte or not,
Exactly. Yeah.
he says, focus on the big wins.
Okay.
Like, where are you spending the most money?
Okay.
And let's tackle those areas.
Like if you're spending a ton of money on takeout every month,
Exactly.
maybe that's a place to like start cooking at home more or looking for like
Right.
more affordable lunch options. Yeah.
Yeah, or if you're spending a ton of money on your car payment every month, maybe you consider downsizing your car.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really about looking at those big areas of spending
Yeah.
and seeing where you can make adjustments that are going to have a significant impact.
Yeah. And I think that's where his whole thing about automation comes in. Right.
Absolutely. Automation is
And
key.
because it's like if we can automate those things, then I don't have to think about them.
Exactly.
And then I can just like let the system kind of do its thing.
You set it and forget it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
beauty of it, right?
Yeah. But I do think that that part I'll be honest. That part always seems kind of intimidating to me.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
He's like, ugh, I gotta set up all these systems and
Yeah,
is it really worth it?
it absolutely is, and it might be simpler than you think.
Okay.
So Sethi talks about the curve of doing more before doing less,
Okay.
right? So in the beginning, yeah, you invest the effort up front
Hmm.
to create these systems that automate your finances,
Yeah.
but then those systems work for you in the long run.
It's that thing where it's like, in the beginning, if you take the time to set up your email
Yes.
and, create like folders and filters and all that stuff.
Oh my God, yes.
And later on, it just things just run smoothly.
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
He actually uses a similar one.
Really?
Yeah, he compares your checking account to your email inbox.
Okay.
Right. So money flows in, just like emails come into your inbox.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have these filters and systems in place
Mm-hmm.
to automatically direct those emails to the right folders.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's the same with your money. It comes in, and then it's automatically directed to the right places.
Okay.
Savings, investments, bills, and yes, even that guilt-free spending money that we talked about.
Mm.
So it's all happening in the background while you can focus on other things.
It's like having a personal financial assistant
Totally.
working for you 24/7.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty great.
I love it. It's so freeing,
It is freeing.
to not have to constantly be thinking about money.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff I'd rather be thinking about for sure.
Right, exactly.
But, I have to say, I am a little bit skeptical of all those financial experts out there.
Mm-hmm.
Do we really need them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think Sethi has a pretty strong opinion about this too.
Yeah.
He talks about what he calls the myth of financial expertise. And he basically points out that a lot of these financial advisors, despite their fancy titles and fees,
Mm-hmm.
they often underperform, and they don't always have your best interests at heart.
Yeah, and there's so much conflicting information out there too. It's like, who do you trust?
Exactly. And I think Sethi really emphasizes that you have to be discerning.
Yeah.
You can't just blindly trust anyone, even if they have a bunch of credentials.
Yeah.
And he even shares a story about how, he was being targeted by these wealth managers who are pushing all these wealth preservation strategies,
Yeah.
even though at his age and with his earning potential, he should have been focused on growth.
Right. Right.
So it just goes to show that you have to, be aware.
Yeah, be smart about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
understand the basics of personal finance yourself
Mm-hmm.
so that you can make informed decisions and you can choose advisors who are truly aligned with your goals.
Okay, so you mentioned be smart about it. So Sethi, he's got this whole section in the book about what he calls victim culture.
Oh, yes.
So what is he even talking about when he's talking about that?
So basically, he's referring to this kind of pervasive mindset that prevents people from taking control of their finances.
Okay.
He says it's like I can't afford it mentality
Mm-hmm.
that traps people in a cycle of financial struggle.
Right.
And he gives this really interesting example. He talks about his save $1,000 in 30 days challenge,
Okay.
right? Which, I mean, that's a pretty basic concept.
Yeah, save a little bit each day and you
Yeah.
can hit $1,000 in a month.
Exactly.
Well, not rocket science.
Not rocket science at all. But he said some people were actually offended by it.
Really?
They were like, how dare he suggest that they try to save money?
So it's almost like people are almost comfortable in their financial struggle.
That's exactly it.
They've kind of resigned themselves to their situation.
I think that's what Sethi's trying to combat, is that resignation.
Yeah.
Saying, look, you can improve your finances no matter where you start. It's about taking responsibility, making a plan, and taking action.
And I think that brings us back to those small steps, right?
Yes.
Even if you can't save $1,000 in 30 days, you can probably save $100.
Exactly.
And that's still a win.
Absolutely. And it's all about shifting your mindset
Mm-hmm.
and believing that change is possible.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that he talks about for how to actually escape that victim mentality?
Well, he talks a lot about the power of negotiation.
Negotiation.
Wow.
Oh, like haggling at the flea market. I'm not much of a haggler.
It's not really about haggling. I think more like advocating for yourself and what you deserve. And actually, he provides these scripts for negotiating with banks and credit card companies
Okay.
for things like, getting late fees waived or disputing incorrect charges or even securing credit limit increases.
Okay, see, I'm terrible at all that stuff.
Really?
Oh, I'm just I assume the fee is what it is.
Oh, okay.
There's no point in even trying to argue.
Well, that's the mindset Sethi wants to challenge.
Okay.
He says most of these companies actually expect you to negotiate.
Really?
Yeah, they have systems in place to handle these requests. So
Okay, so what's like the key to being a good negotiator?
I think it's two things:
Hmm.
being prepared and persistent.
Okay.
He says you need to go in with like a clear goal of what you want to achieve
Mm.
and not back down at the first no, you know.
Yeah.
He shares this example of like disputing a cell phone charge.
Okay.
And because he like so diligently kept records of all his conversations with the company,
Hmm.
he was able to successfully fight the charge and avoid like paying this unnecessary fee.
Wow. So it really pays to be organized.
I think there's this theme of like taking control and being proactive
Yeah.
throughout the book.
Okay.
And it's not just about like, negotiating with companies.
Hmm.
He talks about negotiating in your personal life too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, especially like when it comes to, money and relationships.
Yeah, money and relationships, that's a tough one.
That's a tricky one, yeah.
Like, how do you even approach that?
Well, open communication is key,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he talks about, sitting down with your partner,
Mm.
talking about your financial goals, your attitudes towards money, even like past financial mistakes.
Yeah.
He actually shares his experience of like discussing a prenuptial agreement with his wife.
Wow, that's a big one.
Yeah, but I think it just highlights like the importance of being open and honest from the beginning
Yeah.
to establish this like strong foundation
Mm.
for your financial partnership.
Right. And I mean, he gives advice on how to handle other situations too, right?
Yeah,
Like, if one partner makes significantly more than the other, how do you navigate that?
totally. And like dividing expenses fairly.
Yeah, because I've definitely seen relationships where like resentment can build up over time because one person feels like they're contributing more.
Exactly.
Right. The other.
Right. So it's all about finding a system that feels equitable
Right.
for both partners.
Okay.
And he also talks about like, how to approach conversations with your parents.
Oh yeah, parents and money. That's a whole other
It's a whole other can of worms, I know.
Those are worms. Yeah.
But, it's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
And Sethi actually suggests using like, what we're talking about here, this deep dive into his book
Mm.
as a springboard for
Yeah.
a conversation with your parents.
Okay.
So, you can casually mention to them, well, I've been learning about personal finance
Mm-hmm.
and like ask them about their experiences,
Yeah.
their attitudes towards money.
I like that because it feels less confrontational
Right.
than like sitting them down for like a formal financial intervention.
Exactly.
But how do you avoid coming across as judgmental?
That's where I think empathy comes in. Like you're not there to lecture them or criticize them.
Mm-hmm.
You're there to offer support
Okay.
and maybe help them like take some small steps
Yeah.
towards improving their situation.
Okay. So listen more than you talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Got it. And, if they get defensive or brush you off,
Yeah. What do you do then?
he actually gives some good questions you can ask.
Okay.
Things like, where did you learn about money growing up?
Mm-hmm.
Or what would your ideal financial situation look like in 5 years?
Oh, I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's more about like starting a dialogue
Yeah.
and showing them that you care.
Okay, so we've talked about the conscious spending, the automation, we talked about negotiating.
Mm-hmm.
What else does he really emphasize for like building this rich life?
Well, we can't leave out investing.
Yeah, investing, right?
Yeah.
See, that's the part that always kind of makes my eyes glaze over.
I know.
It seems so complicated.
It can be, but Sethi does a really good job of breaking it down. He advocates for this like long-term approach, focusing on like slow and steady growth
Okay.
rather than trying to like, get rich quick.
Right, right.
And that's where index funds come in.
Okay, index funds. I've heard about those.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I don't really fully understand.
Okay, so think of an index fund like a basket of stocks
Okay.
that tracks like a particular market index, like the S&P 500.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of picking individual stocks, which can be risky and time-consuming,
Right.
you're investing in this diversified portfolio.
Okay.
That basically reflects the overall performance of the market.
So it's less about trying to like time the market and more about just like riding the general upward trend over time.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
And because index funds are passively managed, they typically have lower fees
Right.
than actively managed funds.
So more of your money is actually working for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And where do you buy these index funds?
Yeah. Where do you get them?
Well, I've heard of this company called Vanguard.
Yeah.
Vanguard. That's what Sethi recommends, right? He is a big fan of Vanguard, but he stresses that the specific platform you choose isn't as important as understanding the fundamentals.
Okay.
Like he wants you to be an informed investor,
Yeah.
not just blindly following someone else's advice.
Right.
And there's this one investment vehicle that he talks about that I found really interesting.
Okay.
Health savings accounts.
HSAs.
HSAs.
I thought those were just for like healthcare expenses.
They are, but Sethi sees them as this incredibly powerful investment tool,
Really?
especially if you have a high deductible health insurance plan.
Okay. How so?
Well, so HSAs offer what he calls a triple whammy of tax advantages.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What's a triple whammy?
Okay, so first, your contributions are tax deductible,
Okay.
meaning you reduce your taxable income.
Okay.
Second, the money grows tax-free inside the account.
Mm-hmm.
And third, when you withdraw the money for qualified medical expenses.
Yeah.
It's tax-free as well.
Wow. So it really is a triple whammy.
Yeah.
So it's like a supercharged retirement account, but just for healthcare.
You could think of it that way.
Okay.
But the best part is, even if you don't end up using the money for medical expenses,
Yeah.
you can withdraw it for any reason after age 65,
Okay.
and it'll just be taxed as regular income.
That's amazing. I gotta look into that.
It'd be cool.
Yeah.
So, he's all about investing for the long term, being patient, taking advantage of these tax-advantaged accounts.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the people who are, skeptical of this whole get-rich mentality? It can feel kind of, I don't know, greedy sometimes.
Yeah. Kind of icky.
Yeah. And I think Sethi would agree that, this singular focus on money can be problematic.
Yeah.
That's why he emphasizes that. A rich life isn't just about accumulating wealth.
Okay.
It's about using that wealth to design a life that is rich in, experiences and relationships and meaning. So he actually spends quite a bit of time talking about the importance of giving back.
Giving back.
Yeah. He encourages us to invest not just in our financial portfolios,
Mm-hmm.
but also in, our personal growth,
Okay.
our relationships, our communities.
So it's like using your wealth to make a positive impact,
Exactly.
both in your own life and in the world around you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I like that.
Whether that's through, philanthropy,
Yeah.
volunteering, or simply being, more generous with your time and resources.
It's about shifting the focus from me to we.
Yeah, I love that.
But, I think he also acknowledges that in order to achieve this kind of holistic, rich life,
Mm-hmm.
it requires a certain level of inner work, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
He talks a lot about mindset and how our beliefs about money can either help or hinder our progress.
Oh, 100%.
He's got that whole section on confronting what he calls invisible scripts.
Yes. Invisible scripts, love that.
Those unconscious beliefs we've inherited about money.
Yeah, they can be so powerful.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, we might not even be aware of them.
Right.
But they're shaping our financial decisions and behaviors.
Yeah, totally.
In these profound ways.
It's if you grew up hearing your parents say money doesn't grow on trees or we can't afford that.
Right.
Those messages, they stick with you, even if you don't realize it.
Totally. And they can lead to scarcity thinking, fear of taking financial risks.
Yeah. So how do we break free from these limiting beliefs, these invisible scripts?
Well, Sethi gives all sorts of exercises and techniques
Okay.
for identifying and challenging those negative beliefs.
Like what? What kind of things?
Well, there's one where he has you write down all the things you heard about money growing up.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
Right. Just to bring those unconscious beliefs to the surface so that you can start to question them.
Yeah.
Reframe them.
It's shining a light on those shadows that have been holding you back.
Exactly. Yeah. And once you start to shift your mindset, you can start to make different choices, right, that align with your values and your goals.
It's about recognizing that you have the power to rewrite your own financial story.
That's the core message, I think, of the book.
Okay.
It's about taking ownership
Yeah.
of your finances
Okay.
and using them as a tool to create a life that's both financially sound,
Mm-hmm.
and deeply fulfilling.
Man, it's been, like, really fascinating unpacking all these ideas.
It has, right.
Oh.
I feel like it's such a rich book.
Yeah, it's got so much in there.
So much good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of practical advice and
Mhm.
like inspiring stories.
Absolutely.
So as we're like wrapping up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what are some of the key takeaways that like really stand out to you?
For me, it's definitely about like aligning your money with your values,
Hmm.
automating your finances,
Yeah.
and taking that long-term approach
Yeah.
to investing.
And don't forget negotiating.
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
Negotiating.
That was a big aha moment for me.
Right. It's like a superpower.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. And I think, it's important to remember that building a rich life,
Yeah.
it's a journey, not a destination.
It's not about being perfect.
It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So one small step?
Yeah. What's one small step you can take this week
Okay, one small step.
to apply what you've learned?
I think I'm finally going to set up that automatic transfer
Okay.
to my savings account
There you go.
that I've been putting off.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to do that.
Okay, good for you.
It's my one small step.
I think I'm going to try that script for
Yeah.
negotiating a lower interest rate
Oh, nice.
on my credit card.
Good luck with that.
Yeah,
I think it'll work.
I hope so.
Yeah, I have a good feeling about it.
All right. Well, thanks for guiding me through this deep dive.
My pleasure. It's been so fun talking about this.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah. All right. So for those of you listening,
Yeah.
we encourage you to pick up a copy of I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi
Yes.
and start designing your own rich life today.
Cheers to that.